Hi there partner, welcome to Gamers Web. My name is Mark, and in this video I'm going to take a look at painting some of the gunfighters from the plastic kit from Great Escape Games for their excellent game Dead Man's Hand. Let's check it out. Okay folks, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to very quickly paint up this figure here, which is the first figure I assembled in my video, or one of the first figures I assembled in my video. I think it was the first figure, and I'm going to use Citadel contrast paints for the majority, but not for all of the figure. So I'm going to start off with the darkest paint first. I'm using a very small brush because all my decent brushes are in very good condition at the moment. So I'm going to try and paint this guy in very neutral colours. So there'll be lots of browns and lots of greys and stuff like that. But I'm going to do his tunic in a flesh colour. In fact, I may actually give him a waistcoat and do his sleeves in a sorry, not a flesh colour, a cream colour, which will not be Citadel paint. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to do is give this a good shape first. I'm going to do his holsters in Snakebite leather. Just very quickly get a bit of Snakebite leather on my brush, and then paint on top of the holsters themselves, and turn it round. And as you can see, this guy's actually drawing his gun from his holster in his other hand's going for his gun. And I'm going to quickly do his belt, and I'll do the same at the front, like that, and across. Yep. Okay, right. So quite simple. Once this dries, I can then highlight it with another colour, or I can just leave it as it is. Okay, so that's the Snakebite leather. I'm going to quickly wash my brush, and then I'm going to get onto the next colour, which I'm going to use Wyldwood, which is a very dark brown from Citadel's contrast range, and I'm going to use this for his boots. As I said, I'm trying to keep everything in to darker neutral colours. We'll see how we go from there. So it doesn't matter about being too neat at this moment, because I'm just trying to get the base coats on. I'm trying to cover what I can. There we go, like that. And that'll be alright. Then I'm going to do his flesh. Now, this guy's only got 2 arms, and hand and a arm available, so I'm going to use Fyreslayer flesh, because it's quite a, if I can just get that in the camera, Fyreslayer flesh. It's quite a tanned flesh when it's actually done. I've just shaken the bottle up, and again, it's just a question of simply just putting it onto the flesh areas, and it just flows into the recesses like that, and then on his arm like this. A little drop more there. And as you can see, this is like real time, this is very quick. So leave that to dry for a moment. Whilst it's drying, I'm going to grab my paint palette. I'm going to pop this down on my workbench, which is in my computer monitor desk, and then I'm going to use another colour. I am going to do his sleeves in Buff from Vallejo paints. I'll leave a link to all the paints in the description. So let's pop a little bit of this onto my palette where I've got a cleanish area, which isn't very much because this palette gets used every single day, although I do clean it quite a lot. Okay, so what I'm going to do with this is I'm just going to paint his sleeves. So his sleeves are like a creamy colour, like that. And the Vallejo paints go on quite well. I tend to use a lot of Vallejo paints more than any other paint, especially the airbrush ones, because I find they cover really well and they're already quite thinned. Okay, like that. And to give it a bit of contrast, what I'm going to do, I'm going to paint the hood as well. So I'll paint the hood in this colour. Don't matter about the eyes at the moment, because I'm going to give this a wash once it's dried. Okay, so very quickly paint this guy up. And these figures are really nice. They're quite quick to paint up. You can get an entire gang done in an hour and a half quite easily. And you can add a lot more detail to them than I'm just doing here, so I'll do this very quick. Okay, so next colour I'm going to use is going to be Gryphound Grey, which is another contrast paint from Citadel. I'm going to use this on his trousers. So we just get some on the brush and then we just slap this on. Now, if I'm not too pleased with the Gryphound Grey, what I can always do is go over this with another colour, but it looks alright. It looks like faded denim, which, contrary to popular belief, wasn't really very popular in the Wild West. On the whole, it was something that only kind of got over to America towards the end of the Wild West era. And so it's starting to take shape. And for some reason I've got something knocking. I think it's one of my neighbours is doing something. Okay, so we're on 7 minutes, and I want to try and get this guy done as quickly as possible. So I'm going to do his waistcoat in Cygor blue, which again is Cygor brown, which is again another neutral colour, and it's from the Games Workshop contrast range. So this is quite simple to do. Just get his waistcoat and I'm just going to paint it so that the flesh tones and the cream kind of stand out a little bit more on the model, like that. And whilst I'm doing this, I'm going to use the Cygor brown again on the handles of the guns. And once this is all dried, I'm going to base it. Now it's again, it's a darkish brown, and when it dries quite nicely. Gives a quite good leather look, which is what we're looking for. We're looking for a neutral colour, like that. And then I'm just going to do the handles of his guns with this as well. Now they're not going to stick out, they won't show out very well because of the colour of them, and the colour matches the the brown of the waistcoat. But one thing you really need to know when you're using contrast paints is that although they're very viscous and they do flow very well, they do also have a tendency to leave little patches, so you've got to make sure that you go around and check to see if you've actually covered everything with the colour that you're using. So like that, where are we? Like that. I think I've just painted most of that off camera because I'm leaning into the camera and I can't see what I'm doing. So just one moment. Okay, so the next colour I'm going to use is one of the best contrast paints. This is Black Templar, and I'm going to use this very sparingly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this on the bullets on his belt. I don't know if you can see them. Where's my hand? There. It's really awkward trying to paint on my camera because I've got no room to actually really set things up, but I'm just going to use that like that, and I'm going to do the top parts of his pistols as well. And because it's quite a transparent paint, it'll dry more of a grey silver than black, so we'll end up with quite a good finish, I hope. So more or less that's the guy finished. I could just leave him like that and base him and he'd be done. So I'm going to show you how I quickly base this guy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to clean my brush. And then I'm going to get a larger brush, if I can find one. That's a larger brush. Oh well. I can't find a larger brush, I must have put them down somewhere. Okay, so once I've still got this sand colour on my base, most of the rest of the model's dry. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to paint this sand, the cream colour, which is buff, all over the top of the base, like that. Carefully around his boots, because I don't want to get them covered in paint. And then now there are various ways of doing this. Of course, you could texture the base, you could just paint the base and leave it as it is. You could use Milliput or spackle or something like that. Quite a few ways of doing it, but what I'm going to do is a pretty simple way. Here I've got a tub of Scenic Flock from Javis. This is sand, fine grit, and so desert sand, fine grit, and I think it's fine. There's a third one which I can't remember the name of, but I'll leave the links to all the different things in the description. Right, so painted that. So what I'm going to do now is carefully just immerse this into the base, into the pot, and then just tap it and make sure that I've got the paint all over like that. And I've got a little drop at the back that has decided that it doesn't want to have pick up any of the paint. So I'm just going to put a little bit more paint on my brush and onto the base. Do the same again at the front. Okay, and that is him more or less ready for the table. And I've just found my brush, it's in my water pot. Oh well. So, we're looking at what, 14 minutes from start to finish, and the guy is more or less ready to paint, ready to play with. Okay, so what we can do to make him a little bit more gamer ready and game ready is I'm going to highlight I'm going to use a shade on the buff. I'm going to use Agrag's Earthshade, if I can remember where I put one. Actually, I'm going to use Seraphim Sepia from Citadel instead. Seraphim Sepia. And this is quite good because it's a yellow colour. This will give me quite a good finish on the miniature itself, and it will also shade the eyes and that kind of thing. The eyes are actually just recesses. If you actually look at the model close up, you can actually see the eyes, but my eyesight is not good enough for me to actually paint that. So all I'm going to do is just give it a nice wash all the way over. I'm just going to pop a little bit into the eye sockets like that, and then once this is done, the model's almost finished. Now you just think I painted that entire part off camera as well. Okay, as I say, I'm stuck for space, so everything's all done blindly because I can't see what I'm doing. Okay, so quite pleased with this guy so far. Just make sure that none of the paint pools by just taking your brush and just wiping off any big blobs that you can see that might be pooling in the forming, like on his shoulder there, and like that. Okay, and what I'm going to do now is, this guy's more or less done. I'm just going to leave him for a few moments to dry, and then I'll come right back and we'll do the final touches on it. Okay, right, so he's more or less dry. What I'm going to do now is going to take a little bit of the buff off my palette, and I'm going to highlight the sleeves by just carefully going over again and leaving the paint in the recesses, and I'll do the same on the mask, like this. You don't need to be have too much paint, just a wee bit like that. And obviously the paint itself works really well with the ink wash, and the ink wash will give you some shadows where there's folds in the cloth, like that. Okay, so it's starting to come to life already. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get another paint, which is Vallejo's Ivory, and I'm going to drop a little bit onto my palette, and I'm going to use this to give a couple more highlights with a little bit of the buff. I'm just going to highlight the buff by mixing a little bit, probably about 50-50, and then I'm just going to do very slight highlights on some of the creases on where the fold of the material is, and also on the bridge of his nose and on his chin. So it actually looks like he's breathing in whilst he's wearing this mask. Okay, you don't need to do too much, you don't need to go to town on it. The next thing I'm going to do, we're almost finished now, is I'm going to take my very old pot of Cadian Fleshtone from Citadel. So if you're keeping score, so far I've only used 2 paints that aren't Games Workshop. I'm about to use a third one for the final touch, but that's a different matter. Okay, so I'm just going to get the Cadian Fleshtone, and I'm just going to get the camera in the right angle, just highlight on the back of his hands like that, and then I'm going to get my finger and I'm just going to wipe my finger down so it takes off most of the paint when I put the paint on, because I'm putting on quite a lot of paint there. But I want to try and differentiate this colour from the brown of the waistcoat, like that. It's quite watery because it's a very old one. It's got a lot of thinning medium in it. Okay, now once I've got this on my brush, I'm also going to use this Cadian Fleshtone to highlight the creases on his waistcoat. There's only a couple of them, just to give it a little bit of definition, like that. Okay, right, so final step, my last colour, which is my magic ingredient, other than Null Oil and Agrex Earthshade, which are magic juice for everybody. This is one of the best blacks you can get on the market for painting miniatures. It's really, really good because it's quite translucent, but it does cover very well. It's just Vallejo surface primer, and I use this all the time. I used to use a Baden Black, but now I've found that this is the best one for me to use. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to, this is going to take a little while to dry, so I'm going to pause the video in a moment, but I'm going to get the base and I'm just going to edge the lip, if I can find where my camera is. There we go. So I'm just going to edge around the lip like that, and being careful that I don't actually get any paint onto the flock by steadying my fingers by bracing my hand. Now of course you don't have to do this, you can just leave the base as it is, but I forgot to mention right at the beginning of the video is these models have been primed using a neutral grey primer, and then I've gone over them with a white primer on the top, so I'll give them a Zenithal paint. Okay, so that's his base done, and what I'm going to do now is we'll have the finishing touches to him. So he's in a desert, arid landscape, but deserts aren't always just sand. Deserts always have greenery in them, because as a very wise man once said, life finds a way. And you do get sand in deserts, you get flowers in deserts as well. So what I'm looking for now is, if I can find where I've put it, yeah, I'm going to use this right now. Okay, so I'm going to use some scenic tufts. These are from Gamergrass. I've got a review of these up on Gamers Web and put a link in the video where you can check that out. These are really good. These were sent to me from Gamers Grass during the end of lockdown to actually review, and I've been using them on almost every project that I've done that isn't science fiction since. So I'll just take one of the pieces off, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, very carefully because the base is still slightly wet, just going to pop that there, if I can get my finger out of the way, and then I'm just going to use the back of my brush, and I'm just going to pop that on like that with a brush. So it adds a bit of scenery to the base itself, draws your eye to the base and draws your eye to the model, and that is the guy done, more or less. Just got to wait for him drying. I'll get some photos, and I'll also add some photographs of the rest of the gang painting up. So that's quickly how to very, very quickly paint your gang members using contrast paints. Is another gang member that I'm going to do with another type. I think I'm not going to use contrast paints on this guy. I'm going to use regular paints, but I'm going to keep them so they're all neutral colours, they're all quite dark, or they're very neutral browns, because those were the kind of fashions that people wore during the late 19th century. Right, so I'll get everything tidied away. I'll put some pictures in the video, and we'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. As you can see, this is the completed model that we've just painted. It took about 12-15 minutes, that's including time for the paint to dry. And it looks quite good. I'm pretty impressed with him. For some reason my camera's shaking. Try and steady that. Very simple, neutral colours. And if I show off another one that's done using contrast paints, this was done, with the exception of white, this was done entirely using contrast paints. So, as you can see, quite easy to paint, and it's just you don't need to go overboard with these miniatures. There's a lot of detail on them, and they look really, really good if you just take your time. I'm not the best painter in the world. I've got really poor eyesight, as I constantly say, but I really enjoyed painting these up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave a quick montage of this full gang that I've done, including the lawman, and hopefully see you in another Dead Man's Hand video. As always, my name is Mark. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope that somebody finds this of use. No matter where you are in the world, please stay safe, look after yourself, and happy gaming.